We have several topics, and again, feel free to ask me anything as I'm going through this. But the first thing we gotta do is watch the final scene of the game. So we know that the game wasn't finished, right? And as a result, that left one last scene. But other than that one last scene, I wanted to show off some other things. Everything was upside down in that room. Everything was upside down because it wasn't really real. It was a dream. But the only way you could tell that you were inside of a dream was if you paid attention to the very small and minute details. It's very hard to find, very hard to see. Okay. All right. And what I wanted to say is, feel free to ask me anything about a number one theme. Any question you have about that. Number two, a character. Or number three, Kojima, as I'm going through this. Because I just want to talk about some of those things. So that'll do it for that one. One moment. Okay, so these games, wait a minute. Who was our new friend? Our new friend in here. Because I guess I should start here. Slim, are you still here? I'll get to that with Slim. Oh, that's right. I gotta show you guys the deleted scene. Let me show the deleted scene. This is the portion of the game that they were working on that they didn't get to finish because of issues. One second. When you go to confront Eli, you see how his jumpsuit is red? They're in these suits to avoid being infected by the vocal cord parasite.
I knew you'd be through here.
You're not a kid anymore. You can call your own shots. But at this rate, you'll be dead before you have a chance.
I'm free to die however I wish. Yes, free. You don't get the last word, Father. I'll break the curse of my heritage. And to do that, first, I will kill you!
COVID.
Give me some room. He'll be all right. The vest took the bullet. Get him on the chopper. We'll patch him up at base. Huh? Boss, he's showing symptoms. Huh? What?
I was created by Cypher. And I was the flaw. My fate was written in my genes. I'm the loser. You. All because of you. I'm not me. I'm just a copy of you. I will surpass my father. Destroy my father. Destroy you! I'll kill all of Cypher. I'll destroy your precious world.
Code Red, we need to go fast. How's it going over there?
There's nothing you can do for him now.
Island's completely contaminated. Orders are to use napalm to sanitize.
Sanitize every square inch. Prepare to drop.
Napalm on the
pulling
whole
out.
island.
Move!
Code Red.
Live. Live.
You're one hell of a soldier.
I will kill you!
That's right. Don't blame yourself. Blame me.
Not yet. It's not over yet.
The last nuke's been decommissioned.
We don't care about that.
Memories!
So, with all of that being said, what do I have to say? The hatred for this game. The way you can tell the game cuts off. We have that uncompleted cutscene to boot. And you can tell that the game was cut off before it was finished. However, there's a clip from Hideo Kojima that we're now going to watch. This is straight from Konami. But I want to point out, a lot of people felt that the game was unfinished, and there was a lot of hatred because there's a lot of things that are missing from MGS 5, right? Like when we look at our whole log, what happened to all the boss fights? What happened to all the interesting mechanics? A lot of that was just swapped out for these more modern and cheap mechanics that allow us to just simplify the gameplay. What happened to dying and getting sent back? I just have a checkpoint now. What happened to a lot of that stuff? Is all this stuff taken out and missing just because Kojima lost his job? Perhaps. But I'll let you be the judge. We're gonna finish this out.
As an artist myself, you know, I see in myself a tendency sometimes to think in the same way. You know, to think
I'm gonna
to
try
approach
not to
something
cry.
in a way that I've been approaching it all along, and you know, just sort of think that the solution to a problem is always, well, it's this kind of problem, so it's this. And the way that I think it's brilliant the way that you come at things differently. That's what I mean by not thinking of things creatively the way that other people would get. You know, even just in the games, you know, the way there's a lot of games that kind of all just go in this direction, and the way that you think about it is always very innovative.
Thanks for
in my
everyone
opinion.
who's here, by the way.
28年間シリーズを紡ごうと思ってそんなことを計画的にできる人はいないと思うんですよね。毎回毎回これで最後でこれ以上のものは作れないっていう思いでやってきたんですけども、ふと振り返ってみると28年間やってたと。
All of the Metal Gears, but this one was special to me because of all the years of working with Harry and all the direction you guys had with that, and then also to be able to work directly for Hideo. And all I can say is it was an honor. There wasn't any bad for me whatsoever at any point.
一つのものといえどもですね、テクノロジーがどんどん進化してきたので、ゲームは特にそうなんで、同じことをやってた時じゃないんですよね。新しい技術が入って喋るようになって、立体になって、ムービーがかかるようになって、物理が入るようになって、でアクターさんの演技指導とかもするようになってっていうことなんで、僕の中では同じコンテンツですけど、常にこう階段を上がっていくとか、新しいものを取り入れて、どんどんそうできることが広がっていったっていうのがあるので。
Well, for me, you know, I strive to find a balance in my life between work and family and joy, you know, recreation, surfing, whatever it is. And I think that's everywhere in life. And video games, certainly. It's very hard to, you can have every element. You can have a brilliant story, great actors, great animators. The whole thing can be perfect, but when it comes together, it's hard to tell how it's going to turn out. But I think you found a great balance, obviously, and great success with Metal Gear. For a long time, like, you know, amazing.
But literally, you have created something that has become so much bigger than what I think even you imagined it could be. Because so many of the great games that we have out right now, or the games that are being made right now, you inspired people to make a better game because of the games that you have created. So for me to be a part of that legacy, that legend, means more to me than you'll ever know. So thank you for the memories.
What do I love about this game? What stands out to me? It's the memories you make in the gameplay of the first time. So I'm upgrading everything. I'm using my GMP. I'm upgrading my Fulton. I've been forever like I want Mother Base to be awesome. So I'm driving and having the Fulton ready to carry out the cargo. And when I finally got it, I went out on my first side op, and it was the first of take out the tank artillery or whatever. And I come over the hill, and there's a tank sitting there with 2 guys on each side, and I was like, yes. And I snuck up behind him, choked out each one of the guys. Then before the tank had any idea, Fultoned out the tank right there. And I was like, this is a dream come true, because for 20 hours I've been dreaming of doing this.
It's fun for me because having written about games and cover games for so long, it's so predictable sometimes how people reveal information about games, and I love that games are about playing with people's emotions, and I think you do a great job in the marketing and positioning of the games. And it's fun for me. It's fun for the fans, right? I mean, what I love about it is it connects back to sometimes the themes of your games, and you really deeply think about these things, and that's what I like. It all comes from you as a creator, and some creators are very focused on just the game, but I think you think of the whole picture of sort of how you want to work with the fans and give them a journey along the way until they get to play the game, because it's hard for a lot of these fans. They hear about the game, they have to wait years to be able to play it, so I think you always have fun with the fans as well, and I think they appreciate it.
ミッシングリンクの変換を保管するってことで、これはあんまりまだゲームプレイされてない皆さんには言えないんですけど、どういう保管の仕方が、変換をつなぐ仕方がいいのかってずっと4ぐらいから考えてたんですけど、でその一つの答えが今回のメタルギアソリッド5なので、ファンの方は多分喜んでもらえると思います。誰もがやったことないことをチャレンジしてますので、しかもゲームでしかできなかったことをしてますし、28年間というシリーズじゃないと不可能なことをやっているので、ぜひ喜んでいただければと思います。
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, I'm Nicole.
So that is for Sean's memory.
Thank you.
Again, the extra.
That's my father.
Thank you.
Thank you.
昨年の12月にショーンさんのメールいただいて、で開発の終盤ってすごく大変なことがいろいろあって辛い思いをするんですけど、ショーンさんのメールを開発のスタッフと共有してそういう勇気をもらったので、ようやく完成したということで、ショーンさんも僕らのスタッフの仲間ということで、そのお礼を兼ねて完成の報告をさせていただくということです。
Well, I wanted to thank him because Sean was very sick and he'd been doing chemo for so long that the medicine didn't make him feel better anymore. So he'd do a full day of chemo and he'd come home and he'd sit in front of the video games and he'd play, and that would make him feel better. He could run and he could jump and he could do things that he couldn't do with his body anymore. So for him it was a way of getting through the chemotherapy, so it was very important to us. And like I said, he was so thrilled when he got his gift. And, you know, it was 4 days he passed. But we sent that picture of you and you can see the smile on his face because he was so excited.
ショーン君っていなくなられたファンの方に報告に行きましたけど、僕のやっぱりこのエネルギーっていうのはやっぱりユーザーの皆さんですね。でショーン君っていなくなられたファンの方に報告に行きましたけど、僕のやっぱりこのエネルギーっていうのはやっぱりユーザーの皆さんですね。で、例えばメタルギアソリッド5を大体この辺に発売しますと、発表した限り何があろうと、どんなことがあろうとも皆さんの期待を超えるものを作らないと、僕の存在意味はないので、そこだけですね。でそういう人たちからエネルギーをもらって、ここまで来れたので、そういう意味ではユーザーの皆さんにその一緒に作ってくれた仲間たちにはお礼を言いたかった。最後の最後まで、可能な限り、挑戦も含めて、メタルギアソリッド5を作り込みましたんで、安心して遊んでいただけるものになっていると思います。結構長い間お待たせしましたけど、また甲斐がある仕上がりになっていると思いますので、ぜひ楽しんでください。本当にありがとうございます。
Okay, so, that being said, the man assures you that the game is complete. And, what have these games, taught us, right? I had my log open earlier, but before I go to the log, let me go ahead and just do the images. I'm gonna do the images because I feel like that'll be really dope for a lot of you guys. Yeah, just 1 second. So, the images. So, this is my images. What information will be passed on? Will be allowed to? What will be recorded and discarded? What symbols and meanings will people take from this game? We withhold information, yet allow enough to slip through to allow you to believe that the choice you made was truly your own. And it might be. But do you know what to believe? And do you know what's possible? So what that's about is some of the stuff I'm going to display here. But when this game came out, we are aware of Gamergate, quote unquote, right? And we know that the game got a lot of positive reviews from media sources, those looking to benefit off of clicks and likes. But we also know that it got a lot of negative reviews from the player base itself. So there was a lot of hatred for this game. And I lost the photo where I found it, but you can find it as well if you just type in MGS V sucks. You'll find a well of hatred for this game. And I'm not going to say it's not deserving of it. What I would say is that people just haven't given it the once over or the eye that I'm about to help you guys get right now. Is they're looking at it as a game that was paused in its creation, a game that was cornered and shortened because of a man's termination. A game that was warped by a guy trying to leave his mark since he knew he was getting fired. A game that does not offer you what most Metal Gear games offer you. Where are the boss fights? Where are the cutscenes? Yeah, we complained about them in 4, but we didn't think you'd do this to us. So I'm going to go through each one of these photos bit by bit, and we're going to go over it. MGS2 was made back in 2001. And the reason I have this photo here is if you look at MGS2, right? I want you to do me a favor and look at the photo for MGS5. Do you realize how the V is cut off there? It's just 2 exclamation marks merged together. And what MGS2 taught us and showed us was about the idea of you don't get to play as Solid Snake at the top of his game. This is your story. And this is how you're going to deal with technology taking over everything. MGS2 was the game that didn't let us play as Snake, but told us to play it ourselves. And Raiden was just an empty shell, which we controlled to allow us to do that. All this junk data preserved in an unfiltered state, growing at an alarming rate. That's what we see. All of that hatred, all of the junk data when the game first dropped. It's not, doesn't take a lot of effort to call something trash. Big Boss, aka Venom Snake, when he was defeated by Solid Snake. You saw those children, didn't you? Everyone is a victim of war, somewhere of the world, and they'll make fine soldiers in the next. This is exactly what Venom Snake said when he recruited those child soldiers, right? Start a war, fan its flames, create victims, then save them, train them, and feed them back onto the world. This is exactly what you were doing. Not only is this what we're doing, but this is something that Skullface would have happily endorsed. On the battlefield, you and I are valuable commodities, but back home, we're nothing but dead weight. All their time as soldiers is useless. You and I are doomed to remain here until we die, like dogs on the battlefield. Diamond dogs. I'm saved. The boss of Outer Heaven is the commander of Foxhound, aka Big Boss. He schemed it all. Don't be fooled. Those who are lost never question the path, and a drowning man doubts not the shallows. That's just me giving you a foreword for no matter how deep we get here, you will find a way out. If you're lost and you don't even know whether a road you come across is the right one, and this is about sometimes you may see a reference and you're not certain if that's really a reference, but incorporating the essence of movies in the game with no incongruity is what Metal Gear Solid is all about. This is his quote from when MGS1 was released in 1998. Love is a beautiful thing, MGS3. I can tell that a lot of you love the MGS franchise, but every once a few years someone will write me seemingly trying to get me involved in a catfight with translators for their MGS installments. Why are so many fans eager for bad blood? Why are there so many people that are challenging and angry? Why are there so many people that are trying to challenge the lore when this is one of the men that helped create it? I was supposed to end it in MGS2 originally, and then I created MGS3, and I said, okay, this is the final one. It's over. But people said, no, that's not enough answers, and in the game design. The story was almost complete in 1 and 2 and 3, so I initially thought, but of course, there were more questions that weren't answered, especially with things after MGS2. I didn't decide that was the timing. There were a lot of voices saying we want to answer to all these questions. That's why as a game and as a saga, MGS4 is a complete wrap-up. This is him saying that he created the wrap-up. These images are the hatred that you can find. Cheap references to older and better works written in Fukushima, women behaving irrational, barely speaking, dressed in revealing clothing for no or bad reason, and framed in cheap ways for the audience, eventually killed by or sacrificed for the player to get some quick sads. Sick and unstable characters being really violent, over the top, and damaged in idiotically specific ways. No attempt made to make them naturally fit the story, lack of personality, and little meaningful characterization. Shallow symbolism presented in dramatic and bizarre ways to add some hollow and weirdness and mystery. He is referring to the things we see in MGS V, such as his hatred for Skullface, his hatred for Quiet, his hatred for a lot of the characters, where it seems as if, oh yeah, you're just putting them here because they've suffered. But if you look at the history of Metal Gear, all the characters have suffered. I think that even though you might not be able to describe something in words, it's important to show it indirectly. No matter how often a parent tells their child they shouldn't misbehave or that they should smarten up, the child usually doesn't listen, do they? So I said Snake, who continues to fight despite his age, live by example, instead of offering a direct message. It's like a father going out and working hard every day to provide for his child rather than simply telling them he loves them. In the game, Meryl and other characters tell old Snake he doesn't have to fight, that they'll take over for him, but Snake continues to fight. That's what he wants to pass on. Of course, they may not realize it while he's still alive. Often when people are still alive, you don't realize what it is that they're trying to achieve. It seems very often, and again, shouts out to the stream and what we're doing here, that people only really appreciate or think about your message when you're dead. Rest in peace, Kobe. Skullface has always been dead. V for Victory. I posted this here because this is from 1984, the movie. V for Victory is something that was said in Peace Walker. The game has always had an attachment to the equipment. The PS2, this is an actual chip. This is a photo of a chip that's on the PS2. It's called the EE, the Emotion Engine. But we know EE as Emma Emmerich. I put David Bowie here because Snake takes many faces in different forms, just like David Bowie. From the Thin White Duke to the Black Star to all sorts of names and ulterior what am I saying? Disguises, if you will, that David Bowie wears. By deleting such information, the Patriots can shape the course of history as they see fit. I have that because there are certain things that people just forget, even such as some of David Bowie's earlier works, like Diamond Dogs. It's actually an album that people don't know exists. I want my memory and my existence to remain. That's all people want. But people are trying to exorcise the demons. When she was 6 years old, she almost drowned with my father in our swimming pool. That was just a reference to Huey, so you knew that Hal was around. We were stepchildren in our parents' second marriages, Huey and Strangelove. Separate quote, completely separate. And I raised you as a soldier in the army of the devil. The army of the devil. This is when Solidus is talking to Raiden about raising him as a soldier in the army of the devil as a kid. Who had child soldiers and could have been looked at as a devil? Venom Snake. Literally has a devil's horn on his head and was recruiting children soldiers. Or is it one of the S3's plan's proud achievement? The S3 plan. What is the S3 plan? Is the S3 plan the societal segment, whatever? Or is it the third attempt to create Snake? Snake Eater. Phantom Pain. First attempt to recreate Snake. Les Enfants Terribles. Second attempt to create snakes. We saw how well Solid Snake did in MGS 1. MGS 2. Raiden. The third attempt to create Snake. The S3 plan. That suit, are you Foxhound? The name of Raiden's suit was called the Skull Suit. And in this game, we saw that we had the ability to make the Parasite suit based on technology given by the Skull unit that we found. The Skull, XOF. So they've been using the Parasites and evolved them. And their equipment. We are gone 100 years from now. How will MGS2 be spoken of? I believe we created something that will not fade away with the course of time. The Sons of the Future. This old man did hard work. He's basically saying that he wants to have left his mark on the world. A few good men. Some people aren't ready for the truth. Jiminy Cricket. Now, I'm going to explain Jiminy here, and you'll see it as we go on. As we know in MGS5, we're not the real Snake. We're not a real boy. We are ourselves. And who is our conscience? Perhaps the player is the conscience speaking to them. We also know that Americans are too in love with the sound of their own voice. And English has actually become a weapon. This was even spoken about back in this game, which happens in the future. You were one of the best among the child soldiers. They called him the White Devil, a replacement for the White Mamba. I posted this photo because, as the media shows us, it says bastard, it changed America, right? So, any American that watches this sees this photo and immediately thinks, yeah, fuck those terrorists. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't fuck those terrorists. I don't want to insinuate that. Otherwise, the Patriots will come and get me. But the idea is that the words used here and the image used here makes it to where when you look at this, you now have to inherently take some type of hatred, or they are wanting you to install some type of hatred within you towards the people that they tell you did this. You don't really know who did this, and neither did we. Including White Devil and Jack the Ripper. I posted this because I wanted to show you that the end, you see these spots on his head and this bald spot? These spots that show up, these blotches, do they not remind you of Quiet and Code Talker in MGS3? The reason that Quiet wanted to kill you in MGS5 was because you killed her father. The end. A person who was able to heal through photosynthesis and was very in tune with nature, just as she was. Also, the end eyes, they move like a chameleon. In one of the tapes, Ocelot talks about how she can look through a scope while still tracking a target with her other eye. This is the same ability. This is definitely her father. There's not a lot of difference between heroes and madmen. What is a hero and what is a villain? Should I tell you the secret of the whole world? It is that we have only known the back of the world. We see everything from behind and it looks brutal. That is not a tree, but the back of a tree. That is not a cloud, but the back of a cloud. Can you see that everything is stooping and hiding a face? If we could only get around in front. This is the idea that it's not always just as things are given to us. Just imagine that behind the scenes, there is always something. For example, facial recognition. We take selfies and whatnot, and a lot of people are concerned with the NSA taking those photos. It's true. When players finish the game I've made, I want my feelings to have reached them in one way or another. I'm sort of like playing catch, but the ball is themes I want the audience to receive. He doesn't want it to be direct. He wants to see if you have the ability to catch on. And cinema is 24 lives a second, so it makes it hard to follow. Think about it. Do you actually believe that public opinion influences the government? We're living in that right now. If you think that just the way publicly we feel affects the government, you're lying to yourself. And because we're living in that right now, we all know that's not the truth. But we all know that that's how certain people act. And just how far do you think the Patriots' control goes? Monstro. The Whale. Again, another Pinocchio reference. And if you look at the names I showed during the stream, I named the episode when we talked to Skullface Monstro. Why did I name it that? Because Monstro is the idea, and we followed religious themes on this stream back in MGS3. You're entering the belly of the beast. You meet with evil, and then you drive slowly into its belly, into the heart of where it is working, which is where he takes you to see Sahelanthropus. But while you're being driven in there, you learn more about the creature. This will not be the last Pinocchio reference. You didn't think you made it this far by yourself. Did Pinocchio really get inside the belly of the beast all on his own? Did Jesus' disciples? Even a wanton kick to a prisoner is a very tiny thing compared with the outrages committed by the Hitler regime. But the whole idea of revenge and punishment is a childish daydream. Probably speaking, there is no such thing as revenge. This is in concept to what Hitler did. If you think about how much evil and toxicity he put out onto that community of people, you can imagine they want revenge. But what does that look like? And is that something they can achieve? The only possible way for them to get revenge would be to do what he did. But we won't allow that. And in that instance, there's no such thing. So because they can't get revenge amongst their enemies, they must then look inward. Who controls the past? Ran the party slogan. Controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. Whoever writes the history, the winners will always tell. This is a child who was from Japan, hit by a nuke. More on him later. A young black man named Emmett Till is brutally murdered by the community for allegedly catcalling a white woman. For the words that he spoke and the words that she spoke, this man was brutally murdered. Child was brutally murdered. And as we know, this created a lot of toxicity and thirst for revenge that we still seek today. What was it, only 2 or 3 years ago we learned that she lied on her deathbed? The words that kill. Death threats are what convinced Kojima to create MGS4. He didn't really want to. This is just the idea that, again, the anger and the vengeance that people want, the thirst. There are some people who don't believe it. Of course not. The game economy, war economy, forced Kojima into making it. If you really think that he was a prisoner of death threats, you're naive. Back to Pinocchio. Here we have Pinocchio, the person trying to be a real boy, which if you think about MGS5 as us, we're not the real snake, but we are trying to be the real snake. And who is by our side? A cat, an ocelot, and a fox. Honest John. The way that they sit on the left and right side of our soldiers' shoulders, as if acting like a conscience, which Jiminy is. Good cop, bad cop, angel, and devil. And if you look at the game, you'll recall that there were multiple points when Ocelot and the fox didn't see eye to eye. The angel and the devil on our shoulders, both trying to warp us and create us into what they want. Ultimately, we decide what we're going to do. I have this snake here because I wanted to show off the Glasgow smile. Skullface has a Glasgow smile. A Glasgow smile is the same thing the Joker from The Dark Knight has, where your mouth is cut in a shape where it looks like a perpetual smile. This hides how you truly feel. This is a screen cap from 1984. There is a V. And if you recall, MGS V is the first game in which we use Roman numeral. Not only that, if you look at the hands being grasped here, one of them looks robotic in a sense. One of them looks natural. This is the idea that the information that's being controlled is unnatural, but it's a bond between the two. Kojima has also said in interviews that the reason he chose the shape of MGS V was he wanted to create a gap in the timeline and for the player to fill that gap. Just like these hands bridge and fill the gap. Who controls the future controls the past. This is the creator of 1984. His logic is that who controls history controls everything, just like we see in Metal Gear. Diamond Dogs, you know why this is here. In Osaka, his parents began a tradition of the family watching a film together each night, and he was not allowed to go to bed until the film had finished. They were fond of European cinema, James Bond, westerns and horror, and did not limit the type of films he was allowed to see. Kojima took an interest in filmmaking when his friend brought a Super 8 camera to school, then began filming movies together, charging other children 50 yen to see them. A hustle. Kojima tricked his parents into funding a trip to an island off the coast of Japan without telling them he wanted to film there. Instead of filming, he spent his time swimming, and on the last day, changed the plot to being about zombies. He did not show the film to his parents. But Kojima's teenage years, the family had moved to Hyoga, in the Kanase region of Japan, when he was 13 years old. His father died.
Easy cars. March 10th, 1945. 381,300 cluster bombs were dropped on Tokyo. Japanese houses at the time were almost all made of wood. In that single day, a third of Tokyo burned to the ground. My mom lost her family and home in that raid. She had to move to Yokosuka and live with her cousin. The B-29s kept on coming, razing other major cities throughout Japan without mercy. Then, in August, they dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Japan surrendered to the United States at last. After that, Yokosuka was flooded with American soldiers come to occupy the country. My mother was still in her mid-teens, and she learned from her cousin how to survive in that town, by servicing the troops. That's how she met my father, and how I was born. My father was an officer serving with the government section of Allied GHQ under General Whitney. Whitney was known as MacArthur's shadow, and my father rode his coattails to a pretty high rank. While he was in Japan, he treated my mom like a wife. After he went back to the States, though, she never heard from him. I wasn't born until after he went back. My mom raised me as a single mother. She used the money my father left her to open a shop selling cigarettes and stuff to occupation troops. It was a decent living, but I didn't have citizenship. They're working to change the law now, but back then if your father was unknown, you couldn't get onto the Japanese family register. And in Japan, that means you can't be Japanese. So as I watched the American soldiers around town, I said to myself, I'm a son of America, the victor.
He's from Japan. However, as we see him, he looks like an American man. But he's born because of when we fought Japan. When our soldiers were out there. As we know, soldiers want to have sex. And we don't have our own women, so we have their women. It's just a violent thing, but it creates life. Life that's birth in turmoil.
My hair and eyes were different from the skinny, downtrodden Japanese around me. I told myself I'd leave this country someday and return to my true homeland. When I was around 10 years old, my mom fell ill, pretty much leaving me to run the shop in her place. One day I found a single picture of my father in the back of a drawer in the shop. I'd show it to the American soldiers who came into the store. A few years went by before one of them told me who he was. I know him, that's Miller. I started asking other guys, do you know where Miller is now? Can anybody tell me where Colonel Miller is now? Turns out he'd left the service and was making a living as an instructor for soldiers in Virginia. It was one of his students who finally told me that. I wrote him a letter in English. I'm your son. I want to go to the United States. Day after day, I waited. Then just when I was about to give up, the post office delivered my future to the door. My father sent me some money. I thought my dream was going to come true. I was only thinking of myself. So I went to my bedridden mother and convinced her to let me go. My father arranged for a car to pick me up. It was jet black. When the neighborhood kids who'd always made fun of my hair saw it, their jaws practically hit the ground. I put my mom in a hospital and went on my own to America. When I met my father for the first time, he was living alone in a big house. He told me he'd lost his son, his American son, in Vietnam. He showed me a picture of my older brother. I guess that and his divorce left my father feeling lonely, which is probably why he finally took an interest in me. He'd retired from teaching. He was stooped over, could hardly walk, but he gave me two things: the name Miller and money for school. I used it to learn English and then go to college. America was exhausted from years of fighting in Vietnam. They were waging war in a foreign land, while at home, people were screaming for peace. Right after I graduated, I went back to Japan, alone. My father refused to see my mom. It was the first time I'd seen her in years, and she wouldn't even look at me. At first, I thought she was mad at me, but that wasn't it. Disease had taken her mind. A disease she got while she was young and desperate. She didn't even know who I was. I said, "Mom, it's me, Kazuhira." As I spoke, the sound of my own voice rang in my ears. Katsuhira, the name my mom gave me. It means peace in Japanese. I was Japanese. At least, I was the son of this tiny Japanese woman. It was then, for the first time, that I understood the reason, the emotion that inspired my mother to give me that name. She'd watched her hometown and family go up in flames. Her body and her mind were ravaged by war. And yet she chose to have a child named Peace, with a man who was once her enemy. Japan lost the war. But what good is war as a measure of a country? Since the war and up until the oil shock last year, Japan's economy has grown every single year. It's on its way to becoming a stronger country than ever. I stayed in Japan and joined the JSDF. I was 22 at the time. I did it to pay our bills. But it wasn't just that. I could have found work anywhere, and I knew it. And still, I couldn't think of anything else to do with myself. 2 years later, I didn't have to worry about Mom's hospital bills anymore. I left the JSDF and went back to the States. My father was already dead and buried. I was told he'd shot himself in the head. America crushed Japan, but it also crushed my father. My American dream was over. After that, I drifted around and, well, you know the rest. GHQ made women like my mother. It made Japan's peace constitution and the JSDF. And it made me. I was spawned by war, but I don't want to die in one. I won't die for a country, and I won't live like a pauper. I won't have my fate decided by some family register. So as long as I stick with you, boss, I've got a good feeling none of that will happen. Life's...
To use the same words is not a sufficient guarantee of understanding. One must use the same words for the same genus of inward experience. Ultimately, one must have one's experience in common. Just like Snake says, you can't say you're a hero or a legend. People say these terms, but do they know what they mean? Do we just parrot them? Or do you live them? Do we just parrot any of these words or terms? The language that has been raped by English. Do you really understand what it is you're saying? Or are you not truly respecting it and saying it because at the moment it sounds good? Americans are too in love with the sound of their own voice. So that ends that. I wanted to show this guide to our friend, our new guy, just really quick. This is what we did on all the old videos. You can check out the old VODs and you can see where we broke all this down. But nothing's changed. Back in Metal Gear Solid 1, let's look at what we were dealing with, since 5 is the prequel to this game. We're dealing with the idea of trying to be a legendary hero. We're not Big Boss. Uncertain if events or feats could be possible. That's exactly where we are. We've been betrayed, and science being misused. Not a single theme has changed. Not a single IRL thing has changed. As far as the themes go, fights like a man possessed by a demon. Skullface tells you that you're a demon. There's multiple references to you being a demon. Multiple people are born and raised on the battlefield. You try to save the kids. The lines between magic and science are blurred. Double-crossing in spies. Kazuhira and Ocelot, and we'll get into that in a second. The idea of revenge. Naomi is after us for revenge in MGS1. Revenge that all started back here in the Missing Link. War is a business. The game has you do tasks to generate money. Your goal is to increase your income so you can get better tools to fight with, right?
And when they grow, children grow orphans. They work in arms factories. And when they grow up, they want to join a PMC. They seek revenge on other companies, PMCs that killed their parents, and use their earnings to support their younger siblings. There are countless child soldiers like these in the PMCs. Nowadays, anyone with a computer can get combat training. The FPS games that these children love are distributed for free by these companies. Of course,
she said FPS games are distributed freely. You know what's funny? We actually have free games these days.
It's so easy for them to get absorbed by these war games. And before they know it, they're in the PMCs holding real guns. These kids end up fighting in proxy wars that have nothing to do with their own lives. They think it's cool to fight like this. They think that combat is life. They don't need a reason to fight. After all, for them, it's only a game. Zero is the cause of all this. Defeating Liquid won't change things. Unless we stop the Patriot system, the cycle will go unbroken.
You were smoking in the lab. It looked like a cigarette, but it wasn't lit.
Oh, it's an
Ironic.
You inhaled, but the vapor is just steam. It doesn't contain. Want to try one?
Nah, I'll stick with cigars.
Yeah, but
I don't like imitation.
We should have known from the
thing's
get-go
always better.
that Venom Snake wasn't the real Snake because he was smoking electronic cigars. Not something that the real Snake would have ever done. Neither did the clone, Solid Snake. He liked cigarettes. Again, not an exact copy of Big Boss, who liked cigars. But close in vein. And along with that is, how did we become where we are? Ocelot is, and Miller. Eyes on Kazuhira Miller. There's a lot here. We'll start with one thing at a time. So, Eyes on Kazuhira Miller is where we're going to start. But we'll come back to the cigarettes. So, the medical equipment. We heard the tapes. We heard Skullface talking to Zero, talking about our man. We know that Miller was held captive. If that's the case, Skullface probably interrogated him or tortured him. So they've met. When we find Skullface at the end, at his base, there are crates that have the Diamond Dog logo on them. Those crates held the medical equipment, which poisoned our crew. Poisoning our crew allowed us to get rid of Huey. It gave us another excuse. Clearly, Kaz had been in contact with Cypher and or Skullface before, which, as the tape showed us, he did. Those crates were just a precursor for that. So was Ocelot. Both of these people were trying to shape you, to prove to you that you were the real big boss. Just as Ocelot did at the end of MGS 4. He convinces everyone that he's Liquid. By doing so, the system keeps him alive. When really, he's actually just Ocelot, who's trying to do what the real big boss wants. One second. Bringing that back around to the cigarettes. How did we not know? What is the deal with these tapes? So, how does mind control work? How does hypnosis work? For me, I say that my parents being separated, a lot of what shaped my life was the media I consumed. Because I didn't really have a lot of direct parental influence. But that's not just a me problem. That's a world problem. There are many blasphemous blacks. And as a result, I think there are a lot of people that they don't know anything other than what's coming through their speaker or TV. It brainwashes them. You often hear about people saying, you watch too much TV, you're brainwashed. You listen to too much radio, you're brainwashed. This is why the tapes exist. The reason the tapes are there isn't simply just to cut down on cutscenes. When we listen to the tapes as players and then play the game, we take anything we hear out of that Sony recorder as fact. And we believe it. It brainwashes us. And not only does it brainwash us in that way, when we look at what was going on in the Devil's House, those people being forced to listen to tapes, we're no different than them. We're dead. We are the dead. Again, that is another line from 1984. And I've spoke about 1984 a few times. And it's at this point that I'll say something that I'm not sure if anyone else realized. This game starts during 1984. That is the timeline for this game. That is not on accident. When we escape the hospital, there is a flaming whale that comes. A flaming whale. That flaming whale is once again reference to the belly of the beast. And Monstro. The only way to escape the belly of the beast was to set the whale on fire. When we escaped the hospital at the very end, the intro of Metal Gear, there's a flaming whale. That flaming whale was activated by our emotions, our thirst for revenge, and Psycho Mantis controlling it to take it down. But again, the main idea is that there's a whale here. We also have the themes of Moby Dick and Pequod. So when you see that whale, you might simply think it's a reference to Moby Dick, the white whale, Pequod, Ahab, all these things. The thing about Ahab is we know that Ahab was never on the ship, and he stood outside of it telling the story. From that moment, we should have realized that that was the real person telling us what's going on. Pequod is the ship. That was our helicopter. I might have it mixed up with Ishmael. But yeah. Oh no, sorry. Ishmael is the person who's telling us the story. Ahab is us. We are Ahab. The captain who rides the Pequod, mindlessly, angrily searching for the target that took everything from him. Functioning and living off of revenge, just as Skullface wanted. Oops.
I'll save her. Thanks. You're okay, Snake?
Yeah. Nothing new to report.
Snake, is there anything I can do?
Yeah. My arm hurts.
Poor Snake. I'll increase the level of painkillers in your blood.
Okay, but you can leave out the Benzedrine. That stuff makes me too frisky.
I guess you're not feeling too bad after all.
Naomi, please talk to me. Say something to take my mind off the pain.
I'm not of it myself.
No. Wait. There was a man who said he was my father.
Where is he?
Dead. By my own hand.
Big Boss.
What? Big Boss? I had no idea.
There was no way you could. It happened in Zanzibar 6 years ago. Only Snake and I know the real
Only
truth
Snake
of what
and
happened
him know
there.
the real truth. But as you know, you've been sent in by the CIA, and the Colonel is a part of the American government. This has all been instructed by Cipher. So the only information you know is what's been given to you by Cipher. So, I could keep going on. I can go on for a long time. But I think I've hit the nail on the head, and I'm ready for the close. The closing that I wanted to give you guys is this. How old do you think Hideo Kojima is? Let's search it right now. $57. So let me pull out ye old calculator. You guys can't see this, but I have my calculator. So it's 2020 right now. I'm going to subtract 57. That makes it 1963. How old do you think Kojima's dad was when he died? Kojima was 13 when his dad died, so I'll add 13. His dad died in 1976. Do you think his dad may have been affected by radiation or the bombing of Japan, where he's from? A lot of people also accuse Kojima of being a Westerbo. A very interesting thing about that is his love for a place that has caused his homeland so much damage. AKA the Kazuhira Miller voice clip. The people that caused him damage were what gave him life. Because of Metal Gear and the hatred that he may have had towards America, he lived on and was able to create the MGS series. It was only because of that anger and hatred that he probably does hold for us that he was able to do such. But is it anger or is it love? What is the boss's will? This is hard to say. Another thing to look at is Konami and Kojima himself. He created for them the hero. And they cast him out just as they did the boss, just as they did Big Boss. And then he created his own company, Kojima Productions, Outer Heaven. And once again, in that game, we see an idea of reaching out to those that are dead. Just as we've seen multiple times in this game. In MGS V, we're surrounded by the dead, to be honest. And another thing I wanted to add is PT. PT was released. And they say, watch out. The quote in PT, right? In fact, I'll just play it. This is more proof that MGS V was only designed to be 2 chapters. 2. A V, right? 1, 2. MGS 2. 2 chapters.
I walked. I could do nothing but walk. And then I saw me walking in front of myself.
It wasn't really
But
Snake.
It wasn't really me. Watch out. The gap in the door. It's a separate reality. The only me is me. Are you sure the only you is you?
If you look at when we first heard the tape of the PT recording, that is when the game flips itself on its head and shows you that mindset of the gap in the doorway. And yeah, it's a very reflective game. And if you think that's not enough, right? You see these photos in the helicopter? Right? Watch this. Watch this. Watch this right here. Let me just take one. I just want to show you something real quick. We don't need audio for it. But I want you to look at something really quick here. Just another example of how deep this game goes in detail. Watch this. Where are all the photos that were on my helicopter? And not only that, do you see that image? Right here? E523? Is that not just a reflection? E, right? E 5 2 3 5. Remember how I told you 2. MGS2 is the one game that made us play as ourselves, not Raiden, right? We played as ourselves. We were controlling Raiden, but it was ourselves. MGS5 is again making us play as ourselves, Franklin. 5 and 2 are mirrors of each other. E and 3, again, these are mirrors when you flip them around. There's another thing that Kojima does where we never get to play as Snake at the top of his game. In MGS1, we play as Solid Snake, but he's like a puppet. He's like, he doesn't know everything yet. In MGS2, Solid Snake is woke, but we don't get the pleasure of playing as him. We get a sample in the beginning, and then we play as Raiden for the rest of the game. So we don't get to play as Snake as the top of his game. In MGS3, we get to play as Big Boss, but while he's still infant in his soldier mentality, we don't get to play at him at the top of his game. In MGS4, we get to play as Solid Snake again. However, he's old, he's dying, not at the top of his game. In MGS5, we get to go back, and we're like, man, we're finally going to get to probably play as the boss at the top of his game. But we do not. We are playing Venom Snake. Kojima gives and takes away, just like the third part of this game is taken away, leaving us with a phantom pain. And that phantom pain is what creates so much anger for this title. The fact that people felt that they deserved something that they didn't get. The fact that people reach out and they feel that there was supposed to be more there, more than what's cut off. But it's not there. Taking stuff away from that, that's what makes people angry. And people's anger and hatred for this game, just like Skullface says, is what will keep him alive for eternity. it is easy to forget the taste of the honey, but you will never forget the bee's sting. When Cypher, Konami, was aimed to wipe Kojima away from his company, he gave them a phantom pain, anger and frustration that will live with them forever. This game will be immortalized because of the anger around it, whereas the things we love and we know that are really good will easily fade from memory, such as MGS 1 or MGS 3. MGS 2 gets talked about a lot, and I know a lot of people have seen that meme. But remember, that was a game that was hated. So it's really entertaining when you look at the media and what's presented to us. And if you look at anything, you'll notice that it's always anger and hatred which gets presented to us. Where's all the happiness? Where's all that gone? Why is my timeline filled with violence, sex? Why is it filled with all these things that are designed to make me hate? Because that's what will keep your interest. That's what will keep your mind. That's what will allow the Patriots to push the agenda. My closing words for the stream, and for everyone, about the way this game helped me, and I hope what you've taken away from it, whatever it is that when I was struggling at the hardest point in my life, I started to read, and one of the books I read was about war, the 33 Strategies of War, and that book taught me that war is not just guns. War has changed, just as Snake said. War is a series of things that fight against me, whether it be paying my rent, economy, the job landscape, the social landscape. That is war. And it's all we know. Because we are not currently at war, we only have ourselves as targets. And I'm glad I got to finish this game so close to election. Because you can look around and see it right now. What is not being preached as far as the forming of our nation, which a presidential debate holds and is important, that's not based in hatred. But not only that, how many people consume it? We have no choice. It's the only information we're getting from Cypher, is the message of hatred. Hatred is what will keep us alive. Anger is what will reanimate us. They know that peacefully inviting you to vote won't work, but they know that getting you pissed off will get you at the ballot box.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to violence. The word and the act. While violence cloaks itself in a plethora of disguises, its favorite mantle still remains sex. Sex. Violence devours all it touches, its voracious appetite rarely fulfilled. Yet violence doesn't only destroy, it creates and molds as well. Let's examine closely then this dangerously evil creation, this new breed. But a word of caution, handle it with care and don't drop your guard. This rapacious new breed prowls both alone and in packs, operating at any level, any time, anywhere, and with anybody. Who are they? Who are they? Who are they? Who are they?
It's us. We are violence. So that's what I wanted to leave you with. And I have our outro ready with the music. And, you know, I would love to talk about it with anyone. Tomorrow we'll be playing Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. I will be updating the backlog to reflect that we have cleared this game. And I also wanted to tell people how you can choose what we're going to do on the next game. But we're going to finish Rising: Revengeance. Now, the thing about that game is I've never played it. Not at all. Never once. I played the intro. And I would like to do that, but we're out of time for tonight. So tomorrow we'll play the intro, and we'll play like 2 or 3 hours of that game. But the way this game brought me to peace from my suicidal tendencies was I looked at what was being presented to me, what was being flashed in my face, and what I realized was a lot of what was presented to me seemed to only be dangled in front of my face like some type of piñata designed to make me angry, because that was what made them money. Anger is what made me buy alcohol. Anger is what made me cheat on my girl and find some fucking slut who was like a cheap fuck that didn't care about me and ultimately also fucked me over for money. Anger is what made me decide to slang to make money, because I knew that that would work. Anger is what fueled me to get good and practice and spend my time and effort on these things to one-up someone. It's always as if anger is what's dangled in front of my face to motivate me, to animate me. That's how I felt. I'm someone that's also been to anger management, a program that exists based on the idea of me being angry. That's all I got for you.
My servants began to forge what was to become the most dreaded costume on the face of the earth. The last thing to fit was the mask. Would it conform to my twisted features and comfort?
He cleans his metal mask with gasoline, they after him. Last seen pulling a chick like a fiend, pull a fast one. Can't put shit past him. Got niggas on his own team mad enough to blast him. Retarded in real life on the mic, Rain Man. Stand close to his main man like a chain gang. Who give a fuck about who or they fancy crew? That's no mystery. Like Hardy Boys do with Nancy Drew. Sorta with her drawers down quarter. The ex-daughter brings slaughter like, well, I order. I suggest you hand over the formula doula. A villain in your land, in his land, a ruler. Hard hitting like puffin' the ruler with Lieutenant Uhura. Every day feel like it's an off day with Ferris Bueller. Brother pull heat to prove they not sweet. No matter how you spell it, we still got beats. Check the
question how we live, question what we give, take it to the next, leave them where they can't see me. Still they judge, but they be butt ass. What's that wig? Like a Muppet. Keep it simple, can't trust it. Lights the fuel, mic is the tool. Drink Jack, kick back, drop jewel. Finish what I start, mastered the art. Live in hell, can't explain it, inhale, confuse it more. Cop the 4-4, contemplate, meditate. Dictate, I direct my direct fate. Coming of late, curious.
One last thing I wanted to say that I forgot to say is what you just witnessed in this video, in this clip, is a precursor to what will eventually be my cop podcast, which is called Scanlines. I have one episode out. COVID slowed me down on a lot of shit, but I plan to break down Mega Man and Metal Gear. I've done a lot of that here today, but there's a lot more. But in there, I talk more deeply about those things and the lessons I think you can ream from them. This is an example of what you're going to get when you tune into that podcast. So I wanted this episode to be a precursor to that, because now that we're almost done with the Metal Gear series, I'll have a lot more time to put into that, and that's where I'll be focused, because I don't know which franchise I'm going to break down to this level next. And another thing that's very interesting about Metal Gear and Mega Man is if you look at it, they are not that different. You literally have a guy, X, created to be God. Snake, Naked Snake, created to be the hero, the legend of the battlefield. John, God, Adamska, the Garden of Eden. You have people created to try to match Snake's image. You have people created to try to match X's image. These stories are not too separate from each other. And that's why I fuck with them both.
With a K-Knit, R.I.P. K-N-I-T, sub-R-O-C, eternally for M-I-C. Only we save we.
Yeah. Send y'all to the public. Oh, y'all punk motherfuckers get school slam on sight. By candlelight, my hand, I write these rhymes till I'm burnt out. Most is from experience, shit that I learned about. Topics and views generally concerned about. With different ways to come up and earn clout. I take a look at my life and pace the trails from top bleak and savage females with fake nails to face veils. You out your frame but still bagging them too. You know I know. These hoes be asking me if I'm you. Like my twin brother. We did everything together from 100 cots and lots to copping butter leathers. Remember when you went and got the dark blue Bally's? I had all the different color Kazals and Kazalis. The sub rock 3-finger ring with the ruby and the O-Ot. Truly the illest dynamic duo on the whole block. I keep a flick of you with the machete sword in your hand. Everything is going according to plan, man.
And now I seek the revenge on the one who forced me to hide behind this mask. Don't move, you fools. Within my gauntlet is concealed a most effective weapon. Why are you smiling? Now!
That's the end of Doom. I only wish we could be certain of that, Commissioner.
Oh, yeah? I'll bet you we won't see him again until Doomsday. Get it? Doom. Doomsday.
Yeah, we get it. Oh, brother.
And that ended Doom's plans for world destruction.
And how did you manage to stop him?
Simple. I rearranged the circuit. Once he threw the switch, my ability to attack is faster than the Cobra.
Very helpful. And I will be certain not to make the same mistakes as Doom.
What's the hero? Who's the villain? Dead or living?
Doom.
Kill or killing? Who the fuck should remain chilling?
Doom.
Webster says wicked and evil, but yo, who's Webster? Annihilation and outcast equals freedom and surpass. Culture is chains that breed heroes, villain planes. All these are just metaphors. They describe symbols in folklore, but who knows why it's like this? Hero, hit, or oh miss? Maybe it's all good. Really of God, but who should? Determine the real, evil. What's the deal? Fools rush in, they don't know the yin from the yang, and are ashamed to deviate or act sane. From the norm, they are slaves forced to conform. To really find your essence, take this as a lesson. Break away from the rest of them, get from the form in them, like the villain.
to survive for the day we see new light. I give my life, not for honor, but for you. In my time, there'll be no one else. Crime, it's the way I'd lie to you. I'm still in a dream, snake eater. I'm still in a dream, snake eater.
Go. Go.
I almost thought you would come.
Well, you're supposed to visit hospital before you die. Well, but you're supposed to visit hospital before you die. My friends at the SAS know how to keep a secret. My friends at the SAS know how to keep a secret. Dramatic. The trip to the airport was still dramatic. I've had smoother rides. Still, look. I've had smoother rides. Myself with my tea. Look. Scolded myself with my tea. I won't be staying long.
I understand.
I won't be staying long.
I understand.
Will clear shortly.
Which one is he?
On the right.
And the left? Which one is he?
We, on the right, did just as you instructed.
And the left? Has either of them woken?
Did just as you instructed. Neither of them. No.
Has either of them woken?
Not in 2 years. Neither of them. Their weekly EEGs show
Not
stable
once.
activity levels. Not in 2 years. There's been practically their weekly EEGs show stable activity levels. There's been practically no change.
Shortly.
Jack. Jack. Jack, it's me. You look fit to run a country mile. It's me. You look fit to run a country mile.
Every 4 hours we move all of their muscles. Subject them to every 4 hours we move stable muscles. Subject eventually.
Yes,
stable,
of course.
But eventually we've done everything we can to ensure they're ready to move. Should they wake up? Done everything we can to ensure they're ready to move. Should they wake up? Still. It's been a pretty long time. Still. It's been a pretty long time. How long will they be here?
Indefinitely. It's too dangerous to move them. And so far, no one knows it's too dangerous to move them.
See.
And so far, no one knows most grateful to you.
I see.
And I need you to keep it most grateful
We'll do everything we can.
And I need you.
We'll do everything we can.
Can you give us a moment?
Of course.
Can you give us a moment?
Of course.
Jack, can you hear me? Jack, can you hear me? Nice place, isn't it? I went to a lot of trouble bringing you here. Here, I went to a lot of trouble bringing you here. Still, the ocelots on guard find you, just in case. Still, They also locked that guard help you sleep better. Just in case. I've been knowing that I had no intention of coming. Better. I had no intention of coming, but could be my last chance. If you'd just come to see me first. If you'd just come to see me first. Do you remember the last time I visited you in hospital? Do you remember the last time I visited you in hospital? After the boss threw you in that river together. Broke your arm. After the boss threw you in that river. Broke your arm. The good old days. The good old days. I never told you this, but I had another team at my disposal back then. With a very special man leading my disposal back then. Maybe he didn't like the special man leading it. And maybe he didn't like the arrangement. This man, he, in any case, to have done something. This man, he seems to have done something to me. I'm quite sick myself. Which is why I'm quite sick myself. There's nothing they can do up here. I always was the there's nothing they can do type, as you know. I always was all right for now, but they say it's a one-way street. I'm all right for now, but soon I won't remember you when you do. I don't mind about myself, but what he did to you, I can never forgive. I've sent him to Africa, and I doubt he's coming back. Jack, once your little holiday here is over, well, who knows when that will be? But anyway, I probably won't be around. I'll be somewhere even you can't find me. A tombstone chiseled into the code of a machine. That is all I leave to mark my existence. Wake up soon, old friend. Time is running short.
GG, y'all. Blackout.